Hello and welcome to another episode of the FemiNinja Project. And thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And boy, do I have an amazing and incredible guest for you today. Her name is Victoria Rader. She is a possibility coach, a wife, mom, devout animal lover, tennis player, 4 times best-selling author, Theta Healing instructor, NLP and hypnosis master practitioner, founder of Empower Me and Master Me apps, as well as the creator of You to Shine. Her mission is to empower others on their path from pain to peace and purpose, and from poverty to prosperity. And there is so much more to Victoria than I just said, and she's going to tell us all about it. But in the meantime, Victoria, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the show. It's an honor to have you.
Cheryl, thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to it.
So the first thing that I wanted to mention was, because I did a thorough deep dive on your bio, your history, and your website, was that you're teaching these people how to find peace and prosperity, and you're doing it all in English. And you were told not even to bother learning English when you were a little girl. So let's have you start there.
Oh, beautiful. Well, I was born in the former Soviet Union, in the Ukrainian part of the Soviet Union, when it was one of the 15 republics. And we had very limited choices, and in high school we had no choices. You kind of had your full curriculum covered, so it wasn't which kind of sciences you were going to do. You were going to do everything: physics, chemistry, full education. Actually, and I don't regret it, by the way.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. But one choice we had was the choice of language, the foreign language we could learn.
Mhm.
And you were heavily encouraged to learn German because, we were on the border with Europe, and not that we could travel, but you see, Germany at least had the socialist part to it.
Mm.
So you could go to the socialist part of Germany or other socialist countries and you could use the language there. But I felt a very deep desire to learn English, and a very well meaning, and it's important for us to know that people that limit us the most usually are well meaning people. And they just are listening to the parts of themselves that are scared, and they want
Mhm.
to protect us from the world. So a very well meaning teacher pulled me aside and she said, why are you doing that? Why do you need English? You'll never ever use it in your life. And I remember coming home to my mom and just crying and saying,
Aw.
why would she do that? And mom said, well, is that what you want to do? I said, yeah. And then she said, then you do it, you know?
Mhm.
And so for me, it was a moment of catalyst, really, because looking at that incident, I first went into the victim mentality. How could it happen to me? Why did it happen to me? Who did she think she was? And I'm going through questions that victim mentality asks every time we say, who do they think they are? Why did they do that to them? Why did it happen to me? And gratefully, there was an internal compass that shifted me out of it and
Mhm.
put me onto empowering path that was first as a revenge. I'll show you, not a healthy motivation, but we've all been there.
Yes, we have.
I'll show you. I will make this work. And then eventually into self discovery of saying,
Mhm.
oh, wait a minute, maybe I can let God, universe work through me as
Mhm.
opposed to showing anyone anything.
Well, was that the last time that you can remember in your life that you had that mentality of, put it into God's hands rather than let me show you, just as a way of revenge?
At that point, we need to go back to that moment. There is no God
Uh-huh.
whatsoever in my life. There isn't higher power whatsoever in my life. And just because the incident came to mind, I'm going to talk about it. When I was 16, I finished high school early, and I got an opportunity to visit Santa Barbara, where my friend just was brought over by her mom, who married an
Mhm.
American, and because of culture shock became severely anorexic. And her mom
Oh,
said, look, you've been friends, you've been helping her while I've been away. If you will get the ticket, we will pay for you to go to Santa Barbara College, study English. So I'm
wow.
16. The
Wow.
borders just fell down. And so by 17, I flew in. And it was really fascinating. I was biking with her. and it was very dark, and I'm not a good biker, and the
Oh.
bike hit the curb, and I literally fell through the fence, flew through the fence. And when I got up to climb back through the fence, I realized that the place between the boards was 6 inches. I could not have fit there. And I can honestly say that was the first time in my life, right out of high school there, that I
Mm-hmm.
sat on the grass and I said, wait a minute, I should have been hurt or dead.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm
Mm-hmm.
neither. There's something greater than what meets the eyes. And to my recollection, it's the first time I had what I would say a prayer where I said, okay, if there is something or someone out there, show me how to live my life because I believe I owe it to you. And I have chills as I say
Wow.
that. And I have to tell you, Cheryl, I've never shared this story. So,
Wow. I absolutely love that story. I mean, it's just so life altering.
yeah.
And even hearing it, again, okay, so I got chills a little bit too. I didn't mention my father was actually born in Eastern Europe.
Wow.
He grew up on a farm just 20 miles from the Ukrainian, was it Ukrainian or Hungarian border? I thought it was Ukrainian. But anyhow, so we have like moments like that intertwined in some of our family stories and history. It's like, that was divine intervention.
Yeah. Yeah, you cannot deny it. I could not deny it. My logical mind was frazzled, and and I just that was honestly probably the moment of this simple teen surrender, saying, "Wait a minute, you saved my life, whatever it is, or you are, so I probably owe it to you. So show me." And then, of course, there's a journey of self-discovery
Of
that
course.
continued on.
I like the way you said simple teen surrender because those words just don't seem to go together. It's almost like it's a oxymoron or something because nothing is ever simple for when we're teenagers and surrender doesn't come easily at any age.
Yeah.
So then from that point, did that change your path as far as your education went? I mean, what happened after that? Because you were still in Santa Barbara going to college. And so did you do the full 4 years and then go back? What happened?
I went to Santa Barbara College only for that one semester. I did, but was able to help my friend. I think I've
Mm-hmm.
always had a gift of healing, just not always the awareness. And I always had a gift of foresight and psychic abilities, if you will, just not
Mm-hmm.
the awareness of those.
Mm-hmm.
But I went back to Ukraine and went to had a dual experience, which is kind of interesting. I applied first to the number one school in Ukraine, in Kiev University, the
Mm-hmm.
state university, to the international program because I was not fluent in English.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly enough, it was fully disclosed that out of the 80 students that would be admitted, only two females would be admitted. And so all the exams were oral, where you came up, you pulled out a question, and you had to do a 45-minute presentation on the topic. And so when I stood there in front of the results, seeing that my results were higher than most all the males, but
Mm-hmm.
they happened to be lower than the two females that made it in, and realizing that I was more capable but not making it. And it affected me sadly greatly. Looking back, I've lost a lot of weight. I've put so
Mm-hmm.
much effort into getting into school. But
Mm-hmm.
yet it was the most beautiful serendipitous thing in my life because as a result, I went to Kiev Mohila Academy, which was an ancient academy that was open. It was one of the first European schools. It was 750 years old, but it
Wow.
was closed for the time of the Soviet Union for the 70 years. And so when Ukraine became first independent, the very first act it was to resurrect was to resurrect this academy. And
Mm-hmm.
it was only the second year in the academy. The
Mm-hmm.
prerequisite was you had to speak English fluently
Mm-hmm.
because we had the professors from all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
My Mr. Baba, who taught microeconomics, was from Stanford.
Wow.
My Mr. Bradley was from Harvard teaching English literature. And I met Mr. Rader, who was my law professor and who ended
Wow.
up being my husband a few years later. And so that was kind of an interesting thing. I got accepted into something that I that I wasn't planning on originally. But that's how I continued my education. And I did a degree in both humanitarian, in Ukraine, law degree was undergrad. It wasn't a graduate degree. So I kind of did a combination of humanitarian with law and statistics.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's first of all, my mind is blown by your education, because I can't imagine going through that. And sounds like you actually embraced it and you were loving it the entire time. But also the fact that you said it was serendipitous that you didn't get accepted into. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that last professor to be Mr. Rader.
It was funny. It was really funny. We met at a dance party. It was 750th anniversary for the Academy. As you can see, I was into studying more than into dating. And we were at the dance part, and I was dancing with a friend of mine who had a little bit too much to drink. We were dancing polka, which is a fast, swirling dance. He let go of me, and I fell onto somebody's lap, and I heard this horse-like laughter of my boyfriend to be. And so he was like, can you teach me to dance polka? I said, I'm very sorry. I don't teach rude Americans anything. And I showed up in my constitutional law the following Tuesday. The rude American was my professor. And when I
Oh,
showed up to interpret for my International Foundation electoral systems, he was the client assigned to me for 3 months as an interpreting client. So, God has a sense of humor.
oh, indeed he does. Yeah, and he really got a good laugh out of your situation, or maybe he just orchestrated the entire
Yeah.
thing and intended for that to happen. That's just hilarious. Okay, so then you finished school, I take it, because I've seen your list of degrees and certifications that you have. And then you when did you get married? Shortly after graduation, or how did that happen?
I came to the US and we got married in 1996. I
Mhm.
went to George Mason and got a Russian degree so I could teach Russian history and
Mhm.
language. There wasn't a Ukrainian one.
Mhm.
And uh, I had my daughter shortly after we were married for about a year and a half, not quite
Mhm.
2 years, when I had my first daughter, and was mostly staying at home with her
Mhm.
while doing statistical tutoring and
Mhm.
teaching the language and teaching the history for
Mhm.
both adult ed and college. That was kind of my first out of school. But
Mhm.
I was so young. I got married when I was 20. I had my
Oh,
first kid
wow.
when I was 22, and I had my second when I was 25. And so I
Wow.
was just a baby having babies. Not quite literally, but close.
Close. And I'm wondering now here about like the cultural shock of going from Ukraine to the United States, and of course going back to Ukraine and going to school, and then coming back to the United States again with an American husband, and now you're an American citizen, and our cultures are so different. And just adapting to that, and married life, which is a big change too, and then having kids right away. I mean, how did that work out for you? I mean, was it easy? Did you go through difficult times? Were you homesick?
Yeah, well, nothing is ever easy,
No.
right? It seems like our trajectory is the second things become easy. I think there's a big difference between living with ease and things
Mm-hmm.
being easy.
Mm-hmm.
I think that things that require growth are difficult, but when you lean into a greater power to support you, you have the ease of going through difficult things because you become stronger. And that's been my experience. I had a lot of abilities growing up. Just for the fun of it, I would read coffee cups or, just
Mm-hmm.
kind of foretell the future,
Mm-hmm.
only to understand that I had an ability to feel what was going on in a person's life. And I
Mm-hmm.
had a very emotional turnaround when back in school, the girls would come every Saturday to me and to do like these, for the fun of it, so to say, what's going to happen this week, fortune telling. Yeah, I
Okay.
don't like the fortune telling. I don't know, the prediction, I guess, better. And it became very clear to me that one of the girls' dad was going to die. It freaked me out. I didn't share it. When 3 days later he died, at that point, remember, I had that insight. Oh, wait a minute, there's greater
Right.
power. I said, wait a minute, what was my responsibility for it? Was I given the knowledge to interfere? Wasn't I given the knowledge to just know? Why was I given this knowledge?
Mm-hmm.
And it also scared me the way I was given the knowledge. So I actually did not touch anything that had to do, neither cards nor like
Mm-hmm.
no astrology, nothing at that point.
Mm-hmm.
It just scared me. And I threw myself into religion. And so
Mm-hmm.
I've read the Bible 4 times. I've actually read every single sacred writing at least once.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to over 33 countries. I've been to all the shrines. I
Mm-hmm.
found that in my life, karma doesn't work as well as Christ.
Mm-hmm.
I'll never be perfect. I want somebody else to take it from me. So that was a very practical choice of, between Christ and karma. I understand the universal laws so well that
Uh-huh.
I understand that if somebody willingly offers being perfect for me to not have to be, I will take that.
Uh-huh.
Um, so, and so by the time I'm married, I have made that choice and I am fully finding myself. My husband was married before, and I had stepchildren. I had
Mm-hmm.
one of my stepchildren who was struggling tremendously living with us. And I
Uh-huh.
had to be a 22-year-old mom to a 15-year-old boy who was going through a lot of transition in his life. We're very close with him today. And
Uh-huh.
so I had to turn over my lack of ability to being empowered by who I have come to literally rely on as my
Mm-hmm.
savior. Right? And I don't want this to trigger anyone. I just am sharing my story.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, and so you've seen on my biography, I say on my little whatever it is bio, I say that it's kind of metaphysics and Christianity, and why
Mm-hmm.
they're one and the same is because I think with PhD in metaphysics, I've studied all the universal laws and how the reality is created.
Uh-huh.
And I also know that Christ said, I have come to fulfill the law.
Mm-hmm.
And I think most of us misunderstand what it truly means.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes in world of Christianity, we're so attached to the cross that we're still hanging on it. We forgot there is the rest of the story, and it's beautiful and
Mm-hmm.
it's radiant and it's joyful. And then I think, on the other hand, because of the judgment that comes from that, in the world of metaphysics, they're saying, wait a minute, you cannot possibly believe in the God of light when you are just casting darkness. And so I think there's just this gorgeous bridge of when you say, I have come to fulfill the law. And when you fully understand it, the joy of
Ooh.
it is infinite. Then
Yeah,
you're not
that gave me
afraid.
chills.
Yeah, yeah. So,
That gave me chills. And I do want to emphasize, just for the audience, that you do have a PhD in metaphysics.
yeah, yeah. It was an answer. I got into when my daughter was 6, my son
Mm-hmm.
was, no, 5, 7 and 5. I thought it was in 2005. It was a great idea to educate them without
Mm-hmm.
losing their Russian, Ukrainian, and I was teaching them Latin and Greek. I didn't speak them. I was learning it with them. Okay,
Okay.
as
Wow.
foundation of a lot of languages.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I'll homeschool them 1 year at a time because, they were capable kids. My daughter was very capable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I figured the best way to teach her Greek history was to go to Greece. I mean, isn't that a simple thing? You pack 2 little kids, my mom, who's always supportive, and I take them to Greece for 3 years. I mean, for 3 weeks. I come
Okay.
home, and my amazing husband works for the government, sits me down and says, honey, I don't know what it looked like in Ukraine, but here, nothing is attached to a little plastic card you kept swiping. So, welcome to debt, right? I get my family into debt, 2006. And I literally went online and I Googled what is the fastest way to make money in America
Mm-hmm.
while
Mm-hmm.
being home with your kids. And Google returned back real estate because 2006, the market is hot, homes are flying off the shelves. So I went to real estate licensing school, and by the end of 2007, I had my license. I get into real estate 2008, just as recession hits,
Oh,
and the
shoot.
market starts crashing. And I'm like, um, so it was amazing to me that at that point I was very lucky. I did
Mm-hmm.
competitive gymnastics as a kid, and I knew that
Mm-hmm.
to get good, you need a coach. So I immediately hired a real estate coach. I did not have the
Mm-hmm.
$500 for the coach a month, but I went and hired a real estate coach with Buffini and Company. If there's a
Mm-hmm.
realtor in the audience, they're still the best. I believe they're still the best. It's been 10 years since I sold. Um, and I started applying very basic principles. But to make a
Mm-hmm.
very long story short, I was homeschooling my kids. I worked only 20, 30 hours a week. I never worked on Sunday. Now, I'm skipping a part about me crying, about me being shy and forcing myself to talk to strangers, things that are life and that are hard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because the purpose was I want my family to be financially independent. I want to be able to go to any country I want without exposing us to debt, to
Mm-hmm.
strife, and to pain. And that was the
Mm-hmm.
price I was willing to pay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so by 2009 and 10, I was in the top 1% of the agents in the US. And people started inviting me saying, "What is your secret?"
Mm-hmm.
So here's the drum roll. The secret is there is no secret. Okay, it's just. And so I, but jokes aside, I found out, Cheryl, very quickly that while there were people that were more capable than me, there were
Mm-hmm.
people that were outworking me. Literally, they worked harder. And while I was very service oriented, there were even people who were even more service oriented that
Mm-hmm.
were struggling. And that was the first deep realization that there's got to be something more than the effort. And
Mm-hmm.
I went to study the mindset patterns and how to
Mm.
shift the mindset and how to, because I have a formula of in my Prosper Me book in the Law of Growth, say the formula for growth is your mindset times your skill set times your effort equals results. So I saw effort, I saw skills. The mindset was something I was not trained about.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and got the PhD in metaphysics to fully understand the miracle of human mindset, the
Mm-hmm.
subconscious mind, and how the quantum physics and
Mm-hmm.
spirituality coexist in our mind to create reality.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it happened. It came into my life because I was seeking for an answer. How come I am successful
Mm-hmm.
while there are those that are, in my mind, outperforming me, but do
Mm-hmm.
not have the same results?
Mm-hmm.
So,
So then with that experience and then the education in metaphysics, is that when you decided to go out on your own and start the coaching? Is that where the You Two Shine came in?
yeah, and if I'm to be 100% honest, which is kind of my big thing, I am who I am, take it or leave it. It was in 2014, in August 2014, that the same still small voice that I refer to as the spirit, you can call
Mm-hmm.
it the knowing, you can call it intuition, we all
Mm-hmm.
have it. If you're
Mm-hmm.
breathing, you have spirit talking through you. Maybe we've
Mm-hmm.
ignored it so many times that it seems foreign, but
Mm-hmm.
that little voice woke me up in the middle of the night. It was the best year in real estate I had. I
Mm-hmm.
had over 13 million, 14, I don't remember. Let's say minimum 11 million pending, but maybe 13, 14 million sold or pending of real estate by then. Best year
Wow.
ever. And the voice woke me up and said, "You're done. You're done. You're going to help people
Mm-hmm.
to become what they're born to be." And I came to my husband, who at a time had a struggle of his own. He was wrongfully accused for something, and he chose
Oh.
to step down from his position. It then cost us a lot of money to clean his name afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
But from his perspective, it was, wait a minute, I am going through this and you're going to walk away. And I said, yeah, honey, but God kind of told me. And
Mm-hmm.
to his great credit, he said, well, we don't say no to that, I guess. And, and that was the beginning of me going on my own. I started out with 5 partners, and then it's like Agatha Christie's, and then there were 4, and then there were 3, and then there were 2, and then there was 1, and I
But
was learning.
you had nothing to do with that, did you?
I had plenty to do with it. The girl
Oh.
actually had no. I take full responsibility without taking responsibility for mistakes that my partners made and for,
Uh-huh.
quite frankly, things that maybe not were always kosher.
Uh-huh.
But I take full responsibility. I could not cast a vision for them
Mm-hmm.
because I wasn't given one.
Okay.
I was only given direction for one day at a time, for a
Mm-hmm.
very long time. For a very long time, I only was guided what to do that day. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a nightmare of a leader.
Mm-hmm.
That's an, so where are we going to be in 5 years? Yeah, so for that part, I am fully responsible.
Uh-huh.
The miracle happened in my life when two amazing team members came into my life later who understood that this is sometimes how God works, one day at a
Mm-hmm.
time until
Mm-hmm.
you're given a big vision. And
Mm-hmm.
this is my team now. So,
I just love that. I can just see the team going, well, what are we going to do in 5 years? And you saying, well, why are you asking me? How do I know?
yeah, I'm just such a good leader. I had no idea. Yep.
Oh, that's so funny. But it worked,
Yeah.
and it worked
You,
very well.
and maybe I'm speaking into someone's heart now, is that I think there is principle of revelation and guidance and principle of trust. And
Mm.
I think it's very important to understand the balance between the two,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes we have no answer, and it's very important to continue walking the path because
Mm-hmm.
we develop trust. And in 2000, let me think of what year it is. I think 2018 was the moment when I was teaching a class on manifesting, and that's a Theta Healing class on how to manifest in your life through
Mm-hmm.
connection to
Mm-hmm.
Creator. And I would always teach people that yes, you can manifest things on your lists, and it's a fun
Mm-hmm.
thing to do, to be focusing on material things. But if you align yourself to God's will or to divine purpose for you, and if you ask, what am I here to create and to manifest, you open yourself to miracles, that are
Mm-hmm.
so amazing. And you will still get the material stuff. It will follow.
Mm-hmm.
It always does. So I was
Mm-hmm.
teaching a class and doing the same thing I was telling my students. I've said, okay, what am I here to manifest? And it was a trip to Hawaii. It's like, okay, well, I love Hawaii. I called my mom. I said, Mom, what you doing next week? Can you get off work? As you can see, Mom is my traveling companion. So literally next week, the following week, we were on our way to Hawaii. And I thought maybe just God wants me to take a break because I worked too hard. I've
Mm-hmm.
assigned the meaning to that. Day one, we played, we took helicopter ride, and then in the middle of the night, I was woken up and I get choked up with a vision for 7 years.
Wow.
And I am on that year 5 of that vision, and things have been aligned in the most
Mm-hmm.
miraculous way. But there was 7 years prior to that was stumbling, falling, and getting up every day
Mm-hmm.
and not being able to tell people where I'm going
Mm-hmm.
because I wasn't given that. So maybe you're a faster learner and it won't take 7 years every time, but it's been my journey.
I do find it fascinating that this happened in Hawaii because I've only been to Hawaii once, but I had a friend who actually lived there for a while, and he said it is the most spiritual place that you could ever be. And of course, I didn't have that experience because it was rush, 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 rush. But it was very, very beautiful. But I've heard that from many people that it is just so powerful
Yeah.
and so spiritual.
In Eastern philosophy, we look at energy centers in our bodies that are called chakras. I call them
Mhm.
possibility centers.
I like
And
that.
just like we have those centers of the energy, so does the earth, so does the little element, so does the molecule. This where quantum physics is so powerful to me. That concept is within, so without. Everything
Hmm.
has a pattern.
Hmm.
And so, for example, what's in Eastern philosophy, root chakra, or I call it prosper me center, the center that's
Hmm.
responsible for either sheer survival or thriving.
Hmm.
For the earth center, it's Mount Shasta. So in my mind, it's not coincidental that America always has been and always will be a prosperous economically country. That's kind of energetically where we are. We're the beacon. We're not always doing it the right way.
Mhm.
We're figuring it out, right?
Mhm.
But if you look at Hawaii, Hawaii is on the energy line that's called ley line for what would be called a crown chakra or
Uh-huh.
a revelation center, or I call it master me center, right? It's that where you master your path. And so when you're there, you're mastering your connection to divine guidance. And if you allow for it to receive it, I think it comes through. Not that it's impossible anywhere else in the world, it's just a little bit more
Mhm.
natural and a little bit easier. So,
So is that where the Master Me program and the Master Me app came from? Was it
yes.
did it develop like organically right there at the moment where you got that inspiration when you're in Hawaii, or did it start to develop maybe on the plane ride home, because we know how long it takes to get from Hawaii back to where the United States? So how did that happen?
I was given a vision for the app right there. At that time, I wrote a book that's called Heaven is for Everyone, which was the 365 days of affirmations. There were 52 virtues,
Hmm.
and each week was one virtue that if you read those affirmations and you focused on them, you were mastering that virtue in you. From the Theta Healing background, I love the theory that we're here to master certain virtues because it allows for us to work with the laws. So, once
Hmm.
again, if you take Christ who walks on water, he doesn't break the laws. He has mastered them because he had all the virtues necessary. Just a beautiful journey to tie it
Hmm.
all together. So for me, um, that app was just, oh, wait a minute, I have the book. It's going to be so much better if I record it in my voice and if I energetically charge, because energy is, right?
Hmm.
Energy is. And so if I energetically charge those affirmations, and I came up with the word activation, so that as you are listening to those beautiful virtues, you are activating the energy of them and you can focus on them. So that was the Master Dash Me app. It was called something else in the beginning, but that was the app. And then the second app that was called Empower Dash Me
Hmm.
is the app that's continually developing and we're continually adding to. And the purpose for that app is to open a path of empowerment regardless of where a person finds themselves to be.
Hmm. Excellent. And so now it started with the book and then it morphed into
Yeah.
the apps. Tell
Yeah.
us again what the title of the book is.
The book for the app was called Heaven is for Everyone. It was
Oh.
my third book. And so the first book was Until You Win, and that was the 8 practical steps. Then I
Mhm.
did Until You Shine, was actually my dissertation where I was writing about the law of the light. And I looked at all of the universal laws as parts of the law of light. And so it was Until You Shine, which also
Mhm.
went with my company. Then there was Heaven is for Everyone. Then I did a chapter and compilation book, Ignite Your Wisdom. Then
Mhm.
there was Prosper Me. And right now, I was invited to write a chapter for Wickedly Smart Women on Intuition. So
Nice.
that's the next thing that's going to be published. That's all the
Nice.
books.
Nice. Well, congratulations on all the books. I mean, as an author, I really salute you for being able to do so many of them, because for me it's like a struggle. Ugh. But it is fun.
It's rewarding. I'll have to read it. I can see it behind there. So I will have to get it and to read it and to ninja up.
Ninja up. Well, you're going to learn more about me than you ever wanted to know. I will tell you that, because there is a lot. That's my second book, and there's a lot of personal stuff about me in that book that I managed to skip over that stuff in the first book. But yeah, it gets a little raw at times, but it's still uplifting, and there's definitely a happy ending. But yeah, it's when it published in March, I felt like, oh my gosh, now what? You can't get the genie back in the bottle. The story's out there. And I felt like I had just been stripped naked and was walking down Main Street. So yeah, I had a few rough weeks, but then I got over it and everything's just fine.
Oh, beautiful. Mm.
Okay, so you are also certified in so many, many, many healing energy modalities and healing arts. And you've also witnessed many physical healings, including your own nephew. And I want to talk about that because on the show, I've had a lot of people talking about alternative health and healing and mindset, which I think is just so important because it gives people so much hope and so many opportunities to look at healing in a completely different way than they might in the traditional Western medicine model. So could you talk about that?
Absolutely. And I would like to, what comes through for me right now is to give, I think, the best framework for different ways to heal, in my mind, came through one of the modalities with Theta Healing that Vianna Steibel has founded.
Okay.
I love her approach. Once again, it's just one aspect, one way to look at it. But I've always said there's no wrong way to heal. There is absolutely no wrong way to heal. There are a lot of wrong ways to stay incapacitated, but there's no wrong way to heal. Something that's going to work for everyone. And
Mm-hmm.
so I love her approach where she talks about 7 planes of existence as 7 aspects of healing. So on the first plane of existence, she talks about crystals. And so
Mm-hmm.
there are people that work with crystals because they have an energy everything has a frequency, everything vibrates. And
Mm-hmm.
for every condition, there is a crystal where the
Mm-hmm.
condition in the body, if you now they're learning to measure the frequency of the
Mm-hmm.
vibration of sick cells. And the more we understand the frequency of disease versus the
Mm-hmm.
frequency of healthy cells, the more we'll learn how to maybe do it also technically. But if you
Yeah.
measure the energy of the vibration with different crystals, and then you match it with the frequency of diseased organ,
Mm-hmm.
they can balance itself out to the process of wholeness. If you think of the word disease, it's
Mm-hmm.
dis-ease, it's
Mm-hmm.
without ease, without wholeness, right, and so forth. So then the second plane would be the plants, the plane of the plants. So if you are into vitamins or supplement, which I'm an avid rain,
Mm-hmm.
supplements, if you are into supplements or vitamins, or you're an herbalist, you can
Mm-hmm.
heal any condition long term, knowing which herbs, when, and how to take. Then the
Mm-hmm.
third plane is animals and people. So if you're looking at people, it's great doctors and great nurses. If you believe all doctors are crooks, your belief system will create that as a reality.
Mm-hmm.
But if you believe that there are doctors who are angels on this earth, you will find them and they will
Mm-hmm.
help you, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's who you're looking for. The same as of the nurses. And we know how important the animals are in human healing. And the
Mm-hmm.
fourth one is that's where it gets esoterical. The fourth one is the plane of was called the spirits, and that is where the Native Americans, shamans, would
Mm-hmm.
take the energy and then regurgitate it and release it out.
Mm-hmm.
The fifth plane is more of a plane of people that believe in angels, and we
Mm-hmm.
ask for angelic blessings. There's angelic Reiki.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there is laying on of hands. There is a blessing of a healing. There's a priesthood healing. That would be like the fifth plane. Then there's the sixth plane, which is the universal laws. I am the brain candy girl. I love the laws.
Mm-hmm.
There's the law of a tone, right? We know that you can be healed with a magnet, with a tone.
Mm-hmm.
There's chromatic light healing.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go to the seventh plane, which is where theta healing modality is that, and that's the healing with the energy of creator, which is the purest energy through which everything is created. And
Mm-hmm.
we're trained how to discreate the disease and recreate a healthy condition. So I love that aspect. And so for me, theta healing was my fourth modality. I've done Reiki, I've done NLP, neuro linguistics reprogramming and programming. I've done EFT, which is emotional freedom technique. And I could see where each one of them would fit on this map of healing. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm fascinated by healing. For example, faith healing,
Mm-hmm.
where people that believe that no intervention but just belief and faith can heal,
Mm-hmm.
is a fifth plane healing. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
mindset. And so
Mm-hmm.
once again, there's just no wrong way to heal. There's something for every human being, and the combination of all of them, I think, is so empowering.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that is just absolutely fascinating. I absolutely love that. I was trained as in Western medicine. I have 2 degrees in Western medicine, and when I realized that it did have its limitations was when I had my own issues, and I not only was I not healing, but I was getting worse and worse with time, even though I was doing everything I was being told to do. So yeah, I had a couple of like head smacking moments where this isn't the right path for me, and then had to find my own way. So I love hearing the 7 steps. And if you can just tell us one more time the name of the teacher, so if anybody wants to look her up and follow her.
So the founder for that is Vienna Steibel,
Okay.
and she teaches instructor level. And if you wanted to become a practitioner, you can take practitioner courses from any one of the Theta Healing instructors all over the world.
Okay.
It's, you can do some online. We have two. I don't do too many personally, but I have two incredible coaches on my team that offer
Mm-hmm.
them. But it's
Mm-hmm.
who you resonate with. If you go
Mm-hmm.
to thetahealing.com, I believe is still the site. You can find your language, your country, and I just honor Vienna's path. And then, of course, if you like what I have to say, come over to our team. We'll get you situated too.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. Another thing I wanted to talk about is that you talk about bridging the gap of judgment through love. And when
Mm-hmm.
you say, I'm saying the word love, but it actually is an acronym, LOVE. So I would love for you to talk about that.
I've come to refer to love as life originating vibrant emotion. And emotion is
Mm.
energy in motion. So love is life originating vibrant emotion. I think we say God is love because God originates life. So whatever you think has originated life is your God, pretty much, right?
Mhm.
That's my simple
Mhm.
definition. Um, and life has to be added upon in order for love to be there. So when a person says,
Mhm.
I love you, but
Mhm.
they're sucking your life out, it's not
Mhm.
love, right?
Mhm.
It's just so easy when you understand, am I being loving? Am I adding to life for this person or situation? If I am, I'm being loving. It's like
Mhm.
demystifies it. And
Mhm.
so, as the energy of creation, love is the only thing that will outlast anything. Many months ago now, I've had a client who came to me in one of the group sessions that we were doing and said, I just can't commit to anything. I am either overcommitting or undercommitting because I just can't seem to be committed. And a lot of us have an illusion of I am not committed. And we
Mhm.
either use it as an excuse or to our own detriment and
Mhm.
so as I was going to answer her concern, what came through was beautiful. And what came through was that, of course, you're committed. You're just committed to the scared part of who you are.
Mhm.
So we are so committed as human beings. There's nothing more committed than we are.
Mhm.
Just realizing at any given point, there's a lot of scared parts of us, and there's this
Mhm.
sacred part of us. I look at them as little m, big E. Right?
Mhm.
That scared part and the sacred part. And the scared part is the one that wants to minimize us, not to harm us, but to keep us alive so we can survive. Our scared part has one job. You just have to survive. You don't have to be happy. You don't have to grow. You just have to not die, please. That's the
Mhm.
job of the scared part. And so, what happens often, instead of connecting to this sacred part that says, love the scared, we punish the scared. We
Mhm.
chase it out. How could I? And so for me, the most important thing, we still have the free meditation from scared to sacred. If you look at the letters, they're the same letters and
Mhm.
only C is moved. And I call it the C
Mhm.
of commitment, just as a memory. So
Mhm.
finding your scared parts and sending love to them
Mhm.
will allow for you to commit to the sacred move. And in my life, I was painfully, painfully shy. Did not have friends for the longest time. I remember it was about, I don't know, 11 maybe. And before going to school in our yard, we were right by the lake, and all the kids would do a big bonfire and bring
Mhm.
food to it. My mom and dad were like, just go, just
Mhm.
go. These kids live in now. I lived in a nine story building with multiple units. And like, just go be with the kids. And they gave me food. And I remember the moment when I went and sat in the brush there with the food between the home, terrified of
Mhm.
going back and saying I couldn't make it to the bonfire, and the bonfire where the kids were and the fun was. And I just was, it doesn't have to be grand. I was just experiencing this surreal survival mode
Mhm.
of sheer fear.
Mhm.
And gratefully for me, I didn't step into courage. I had one of the kids notice that somebody was sitting in the brush and come to my rescue. And I came in and I was awkward and worked through it. But sometimes we won't have anybody come and rescue for us, so
Mhm.
we need to be that someone. We need to
Mhm.
say, I know you're scared and
Mhm.
you got this. You
Mhm.
got this. You're going to be okay. Just trust me. Let's go do this uncomfortable thing.
Mhm.
And we can only do that if we love the ugly, feared, fearful, scared parts of who
Mhm.
we are.
Well, I think if we understand that the fear is there for a reason to keep us safe, and even if we can talk to the fear and say, no, I think it's going to be all right, let's just, take a deep breath and step in there and take that food and go party at the bonfire.
Yep, or just not pass out. Whatever you're capable of
Right.
at that moment.
Exactly. As long as I don't cry or, throw up or, yeah, embarrass myself, it's going to be great. It's going to be
Yeah.
great. So I have got to ask because as I'm, listening to your story, all your stories, and it's such an incredible journey, and you have so many wonderful things to share with us and to share with other people and to help them understand how much power we really have inside of ourselves as long as we learn how to tap into it. It's just an amazing, amazing process. Um, I just have got to ask, what would that 16-year-old in Ukraine say or think if she could have looked into the future and saw what she was doing now?
Oh, it's beautiful. I think she'd say thank you because as a 16-year-old, I had all these dreams
Mhm.
that I have come to now fulfill.
Mhm.
I dreamed of standing on the Great Wall of China, and I have. I dreamed of going into Taj Mahal, and I have.
Okay.
And I've dreamed of having as many dogs as I can, and I haven't. I have three, but I guess 500 is not very feasible. So when I'm on my way, and so
Mhm.
I think she would say thank you for fulfilling my dreams.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And as somebody who is a devout dogaholic, my husband and I, we actually did rescue for about 7 years. And at one point, the breed that we rescued were the Italian Greyhounds. They're the real little tiny Greyhounds, not the big racing Greyhounds. And at one point in my house, I actually had 6 Italian Greyhounds and a black lab mix. And
Oh,
I don't know how we did it. We were much younger then, but it was just all I could think of was there is so much love in this house. It was just so wonderful. And I just absolutely love dogs. So I hear you, sister. Keep going. You'll hit that 500 mark. I have all the confidence in the world in your ability to manifest, and you will have 500 dogs eventually.
oh, just baby, help them. Not, Yeah.
So, Victoria, of course, all this information is going to be in the show notes, but please, if you could tell the audience how they can get a hold of you, where they can find you, your website, social media, where they can find your books, any of that, I would love for you to tell them.
I think the greatest intro would be as a gift to everyone is I found that and in my life where I've gone from growing up in a little house with no indoor plumbing at my grandma's house in the summer,
Mm-hmm.
so I
Mm-hmm.
tell I'm a girl that went from outhouse to beach house. I understand how prosperity works, and I found that all of us have an emotion that is driving, that is powerful, but when it's not channeled properly, it will block us from being prosperous. And so we've created a quiz that's called moneyquiz.me. I mean, it's the link for it is moneyquiz.me. And when you go to that quiz and you take it, it's very fun and it's very short. It's going to tell you what your powerful driving emotion is, not only in its power, but also how it can look like when it's not channeled properly that blocks you from financial prosperity. And then it'll tell you also the three laws, the three universal laws to start with mastering on your way to that prosperity. And then you can follow it up with Prosper Me book and Empower Me app before you get into any other high level spiritual offerings and trainings. So that's where I would like for people to go, and you can find me that way because the second you take the quiz, you'll have my contact. And on Instagram, it's at Vica_Rader, VICA_RADER.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Oh my goodness, Victoria, this has been just amazing. What a wonderful episode. Thank you so much for being here, sharing your time with us and your wisdom. And it's just been an honor. So thank you.
Cheryl, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's been pretty special.
It certainly has been. And everybody, thank you so much for listening. As always, I really appreciate you. And do go to Victoria's website, check out her quiz. I think I'm going to be taking that maybe later today or tomorrow. And check out her books. She's an amazing person, as you can see. And just remember to tap into that divine spirit that we all have deep inside of us and learn to accept your fear or make friends with it. And so you can move on and go to that bonfire and have a really good time. And that is the way of the FemiNinja.